You're 14. It's the morning of your wedding somewhere in the Roman Empire, roughly 2,000 years ago. You didn't pick him. You didn't meet him more than 2 times. Your father chose him, a man old enough to be finishing what you're just starting. There's no ring, no proposal, no moment where anyone asked what you wanted. By evening, you'll belong to his household instead of your father's. And nobody in your family thinks this is strange. Nobody thinks it's wrong. Your mother married around the same age. So did her mother. This isn't a crisis. It's just what Friday looks like. So ask the obvious question. Why? Why was 14, sometimes 12, treated as a completely unremarkable age to become someone's wife? Most people think they already know the answer. Ancient people married young because they died young. Life was short, so you'd better get married and have kids fast, right? Here's the part nobody explains well. That famous number, a life expectancy around 30, isn't a lie, but it's not what you think either. It's an average, and averages break when the two ends of the scale don't match. In the ancient world, almost a third of babies never made it to their first birthday. About half of all children died before they turned 10. Pull that average down hard enough, and 30 is what you get. Not because grown-ups were dying at 30, because so many children never became grown-ups at all. Make it past 10 and everything changes. Romans who survived childhood could expect to live into their 50s or 60s. Some lived much longer. Livia, wife of the Emperor Augustus, made it to 86. So a 14-year-old bride wasn't racing a clock about to run out. She might have had 50 more years ahead of her, which means the easy answer, they married young because they were about to die, falls apart the second you actually look at the numbers.
So if death wasn't forcing their hand, something else was. And the Romans, it turns out, didn't hide the real reason. They wrote it straight into law. Rome wrote everything down. Even this. The law said a girl could marry starting at 12 years old. 12. Not a guess, not local custom. It's written in Roman legal code, plain and official. So did every Roman girl marry at 12? Historians used to think so. Then they checked. In 1987, a historian dug through thousands of old Roman tombstones because the Romans carved family details right into the stone. Wife's age, husband's name, who buried who, and the number that came back surprised everyone. Regular Roman girls, the daughters of farmers and shopkeepers, married around 18 to 20, not 12. Grown women, not children. But the richest families broke that pattern completely. The Emperor Augustus married off his own daughter, Julia, at 14. Senators' daughters were promised away as toddlers and married as young teens. Here's the part that cracks the whole thing open. The wealthier the family, the younger the bride. Why? Because for the rich, a daughter wasn't a person you were protecting. She was a deal. Married her off fast and you lock in land, allies, and power before anyone else can. For the poor, there was no deal to make, just one less pair of hands at home. So they waited. But Rome wasn't the only ancient power playing this game, though. A few hundred miles east, a city with a very different reputation was about to prove the trade wasn't just a Roman habit. Athens gets remembered as the birthplace of democracy. Big ideas, big debates. So surely they treated their daughters better than Rome did. They didn't. Athenian doctors believed a girl needed to be kept calm, almost cold. So elite families fed their daughters a plain diet on purpose. Barely any meat, watered-down wine, bread and vegetables day after day. Doctors believed real food gave a girl energy she didn't need, the kind of energy that led to trouble. So they kept her hungry for years, not to save money, to keep her weak. A typical Athenian girl married around 14 to a man closer to 30. He was expected to train her the way you'd train a new employee in how to run his house. Weak, quiet, obedient. Married to a stranger twice her age. That was the ideal. But a few hundred kilometers away, in Sparta, girls were raised the opposite way. Full meals, meat, wine. Wrestling and running outdoors, same as the boys. Spartan women weren't married off until around 18, and Spartan mothers survived childbirth along with their babies at far higher rates than Athenian mothers did. Everyone in the Greek world knew this. The link between food, strength, and survival wasn't a secret. Athens chose the weaker, hungrier daughters anyway, because a stronger daughter was a harder daughter to control. All of that, The law, the diets, the deals happened in the last blink of human history. Homo sapiens has walked this earth for about 300,000 years. Farming didn't show up until roughly 12,000 years ago. Do the math. For over 90% of the time our species has existed, there was no land to inherit, no dowry to pay, no deal to make. So what happened to a person's worth before there was anything to trade them for? To answer that, go back 34,000 years to what's now Russia. Two children lie side by side in a single grave, head to head, covered in red powder. One had legs that never grew straight, bowed since birth. The other's teeth show almost no wear, like he spent his short life eating nothing but soft food. Neither child could hunt, neither could carry or build or fight. And here's the part that doesn't add up. Scientists tested how long it takes to hand-carve one ivory bead. More than an hour, each one. These two children were buried with over 10,000 beads. That's more than 5,000 hours of work per child. Add fox teeth, ivory spears, armbands, carved artwork, and their grave outranks every other burial at the site, including a grown man buried nearby who had status of his own.
Nobody earned this by hunting well. Nobody married into it. There was no dowry involved because there was nothing yet to build a dowry out of. Researchers who study the site say it plainly. This wasn't status these children achieved. It was status they were simply born into. So here's what actually happened, in order. Long before Rome, long before the first field was ever planted, humans already knew how to hand a person status they hadn't earned, just for being born into the right family, the right group. Then agriculture arrived. Suddenly there was land you could inherit and had to defend. And once something was worth defending, families needed a way to keep it locked inside the bloodline, generation after generation. That's the moment marriage stopped being about a person and started being about a deal. That's the moment marriage stopped being about a person and started being about a deal. Run it back. The death rate myth was never really about dying. It hid a darker number. Half of all children never reached 10. Rome's legal age of 12 wasn't really about biology. It was about how much a family had to protect. Athens's underfed daughters weren't really about diet. They were about control, kept quiet and weak on purpose. Every explanation, once you dig deep enough, leads to the same root. Not love, not biology, property. Who had it, who was about to inherit it, and who needed to be controlled or traded to keep it in the family. Now picture that grave again. Two children who could produce nothing, protect nothing, inherit nothing, buried like royalty anyway. That's not the version of us that got buried under Rome and Athens and every dowry that came after. That's the older version, the one that valued a person simply for existing. So here's the real question. Somewhere between that grave and right now, we started pricing people. The question was never why they married so young. It's whether we ever really stopped.